Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Let's Talk Automotive episode 25. In tonight's show, we're going to discuss the latest news.
And then we're going to show you our review of the surprisingly nice Haval H2.
We've got a very, very special and surprise guest this evening.
And then it's your favorite time of the night, which is game time or shame time for me.
As it's better known, shame time, that's right. And then we're going to get to how things work, and tonight we're looking at passive safety. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Let's Talk Automotive. So Peter, another busy week for us.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Lots of work.
I'm looking forward to this episode, and I think you should tell us why. And I mentioned that we've got a special guest tonight. Tell us about this guy.
Well, I think let's put it out to the viewers to see if they can guess who the special guest is.
Okay.
So I'm going to give away a few clues. So first of all, he's a prolific sportsman in every respect. He's done over 150 marathons and ultramarathons. Has done the 42.2 kilometer half marathon in a time of 2 hours and 29 minutes, which actually puts him in the top 100 in
Sure.
South Africa. He's done Comrades in a best time of 7 hours and 19 minutes. But I want to also give you, the resume is very long, so
Sure.
I'm trying to summarize this as best I can. He has broadcast 8 Olympic Games, has anchored more than 200 rugby tests, 500 Super Rugby games, 75 golf majors, literally thousands of other sports events, from Formula One to off-road, countless other types of sports. Anything
Women's
from
darts.
Sorry?
Women's darts.
Yeah, I was going to say anything from wheelchair, basketball to women's darts, and probably tiddlywinks in between.
Listen, is there an automotive connotation here as well?
There is absolutely an automotive connotation.
Okay, so let's put it out to the viewers. If you can guess who that is, please pop your comments into the comments below right now. Peter Viljoen, I think we need to get into this week's news. So we've discussed Dieselgate in previous episodes, and,
Yes.
and this thing is actually just
It
snowballing.
doesn't seem
in
like it's ever going to end. It's the gift that keeps on giving. So this week, the Continental offices were raided.
Whoa. Continental Brew makes tires.
Actually, they don't.
They make tires.
They make tires.
So is
so
there
they
some
make
sort of
tires.
diesel? Is there some sort of diesel emission in the tire?
They make more than tires.
Really?
They're actually the third largest automotive parts supplier in the world. So they make various things. They make brake systems, electronics, active safety devices, powertrain and chassis components. They even bought out VDO, which make
I honestly didn't know that.
Yeah, so they've been investigated for their part in terms of the cheating systems and the software that were used by Volkswagen in Dieselgate. So this story really has got a long way to go still.
There on screen we can see this is now the world's top automotive aftermarket suppliers, and is that Continental in the fourth place?
Fourth place in terms of aftermarket, but third place in terms of OEM suppliers. So they manufacture a whole lot of components for the manufacturers themselves.
Okay, so now they're implicated in this Dieselgate saga as well.
They absolutely are. Yeah. So we wonder how deep this rabbit hole is going to go.
Where do you think we are going with this story? We already know that diesels are sort of almost phasing out of Europe completely.
I think that's the consequence of Dieselgate, is that diesel motors are now no longer going to be mainstream.
Yeah.
We're going to see the end of diesels before petrols, and then finally we're going to go straight to electric motors.
Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that, and very interesting times ahead. You mentioned that we reviewed the Haval H2. Now again, this is something that I was looking forward to because this brand has really taken South Africa by storm.
It has, and I think that what Haval have done is really opened the door for other Chinese brands to enter the South African market, because I think for the first time, realistically, we have a Chinese brand that's actually very competent. And what we make mention of during the review is that we're not reviewing the Haval as a good Chinese brand, we're reviewing the Haval as a good car.
I hear you. All right, let's get into this week's review, and this is the Haval H2.
welcome to Let's Talk Automotive, and today we've got the Haval H2.
So we first saw the H2 in its original form in 2016, and at that stage it was already a good looking vehicle.
And now,
I think they've done a fantastic job with what is really quite an aggressive facelift.
yeah, you wouldn't actually make it out. The car actually attracts a lot of attention. The color, this grille, very well put together, and it feels solid.
It is solid, and one of the things that you and I were speaking about just now was the care points. What are the things that Haval have paid attention to?
Yes,
and it's
to make it a bit more appealing. Huh?
exactly. So let's start with the lights. I mean, we've got our fog lights, we've got our daytime running lights, but what I find very cool is when the manufacturer sticks their name in the light like this, in the headlight assembly itself.
A little bit of pizzazz to the mix.
I just think it looks premium. We've got nice big 18-inch alloy wheels, a really decent ride height out of the vehicle, even though it's not a 4x4. I like this badging on the C-pillar over here, and that goes through to, again, the badging
at the back.
in the rear lights. And from the rear, this vehicle also looks the part.
It does. Twin exhaust, quite deceptive, because it actually looks decent.
And this is the entry level City.
No.
So it's not even the high spec vehicle in there. Like I say, they've put a lot of attention to detail.
But wait till you drive it. When you see the amount of features that actually come in the standard entry level vehicle, I think you'll be shocked.
Well, I can't wait, so let's go.
So Peter, Haval, what a price range.
A lot of value for money in this vehicle. I mean, we just about need to have a list in front of us
To figure out.
to go through all the standard execution. And this is not even the top of the range Lux. This is the City.
How odd, it's got more accessories than a Kardashian.
But it's got some very cool accessories. I mean, think about it. You've got a seatbelt indicator over here. So if your passengers in the rear are not wearing the seatbelts,
You would be
You can
informed.
see.
Yeah.
it's got an auto dim mirror. It's got a multifunction steering wheel.
Yes.
What else?
Well, we've got the soft dash. For me, it's quite an interesting addition. You just want to keep grabbing it and playing with it, like, you know, like what are those bubble things? Like,
So let's just be clear on that. A lot of people complain that a car's too plastic in. What they actually mean, or should mean, is that it's because this is plastic as well. It's not that it's too plasticky; it's that it's too brittle. And this, like you say, it's got this nice soft touch. By the way, there's a safety element in that as well.
really, from the softness, it's not just feels like you want to chew on it.
No, there is a safety element. So if you have an accident in your car, one of the things that happens is the inertia pulls you forward and your arms fly around. And an impact is never just one direction. You sort of bounce around. And while you're bouncing around, your arms are hitting everything. And to have a soft touch actually reduces injuries.
Impact, wow. Okay, and probably breakage as well, I'm presuming,
Well,
if it's all
you're
sticky.
going to worry about that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what we've got insurance for.
You've got climate control, left and right, not the rear.
In this one, it seems as though it's a single unit automatic control in the Lux, but in the City. But in the Lux, you're going to have a dual zone climate control. So I can put you on this side, or my mother-in-law in particular, and I can crank the temperature up to very, very hot
Yeah.
temperatures there, and on my side I'll leave it nice and cool. And it's very effective because air is an excellent insulator, so it really does work.
Yeah, that's interesting. And the automatic box, smooth? You finding it entertaining?
The automatic box.
Yeah.
Look, the drive so far, we haven't driven very far. It's very pleasant.
It's comfortable. For me, the price range and what's available in the market now, it's quite relevant. Because as with the economy declining, there's not many cars in the market now at 290,000 that you could get with all these features. I mean, we haven't even spoken about the drive modes.
Yeah, there's 3 drive modes.
Okay, but hold on, there's driving, there's slow and slower. Actually, I think it's economic and snow.
So economic and snow. The snow mode is so docile that it's almost an emergency brake.
Okay, so you'd use it actually, yeah, when it's raining. And we also spoke about the features within the car. It's got a sort of a semi-luxurious pseudo ivory feel to it, and space-wise.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the competitors, what are its direct competitors? We've got the Renault Duster and the Hyundai Creta.
Creta. Oh, yeah, the Creta. Yeah, that's
The Creta is substantially more expensive for less spec, actually.
Yes, and you mentioned less kilowatts, less power as well.
Yeah, I know you like your fast cars and everything, but You know, for a 1.5 litre turbo engine in a body this size, it's not bad. You know, it's 102 kilowatts. And I think the Duster is a 1.6, and that's only 84 kilowatts.
Yeah, it does make, and of course I don't even know what the Creta is at this point in time. I'm just actually checking that.
The Creta is. So the Creta is 90 kilowatts and 150 Newton meters.
Yeah.
This, if we have a look at my notes over here, is 105 kilowatts and 202 Newton meters. So,
yeah,
you know,
and it's a big body.
It's a big body. Listen, this is not designed to be a sports car. This has got practical purposes in terms of providing a utility vehicle with space. It's economical.
And it's got reasonable ground clearance as well.
Reasonable. Look, it's not a 4x4
No.
by any stretch of the imagination. It's a front-wheel drive, but nonetheless.
But as our roads get worse, you will be fine. Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities for this brand to explore South Africa, and I think they're not marketing at the right sort of level of what the appeal factor is, because people look at the Chinese brand and they go, oh no, you know, it's Chinese brand. But realistically, how many things aren't actually made in China?
You know what is hugely popular, very premium, and made in China? iPhones.
Okay, yes.
And people have no problem with the fact that their iPhones are made in China. Why have they got a problem with the car being made?
Yeah, I know, it's a bit odd. And considering that this has also got Apple CarPlay plus Google
Android Auto.
Yes. So you've got those features as well. The sound system, strangely enough, demonstrates DTS surround sound. I won't get into that discussion because it's not really DTS. It's probably like maybe flea market DTS would be a better finish. And it's reasonable.
Okay.
It is made in China. Who said that?
So one of the things that is going to be on everybody's lips is, what is the fuel consumption? Now, Haval claim a combined cycle of 9 liters per 100 kilometers.
Heavy body. I'm just putting it out there.
Which is, you know,
it's average.
It's average. It's not bad if you consider we've only done town driving and we're doing 9.5 liters per 100 kilometers, which is not bad.
So it is reasonable.
It is reasonable for a vehicle this size, as far as I'm concerned.
Of where it sits, within the market space. I think for me, I was expecting less, but I keep forgetting that it's actually a heavy body. I mean, to you, it doesn't feel light. It feels solid.
No, it's a big car.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a compact SUV. It's a...
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting quite comfortably. There's the shoulder room.
I've been very impressed by this. I mean, if you consider that this is 289,900 for the entry level, and when we say entry level with all the bells and whistles. It's got all the bells and whistles, and at the end of the day, Vish, what can you buy for 290,000 Rand?
Not in this market, and not with this kind of features, this kind of comfort, this kind of ride height.
I mean, you'd battle to get an entry level hatch.
Yeah, let's not go into those pricing structures at the moment.
So I've been impressed with it. I think it's good value for money. I think it deserves to do well in South Africa. The styling is awesome. The feature list is extensive. Interior-wise, I was impressed.
I think there's a comparative test that's needed, but it needs to be showcased because their warranties, they've got all sorts of other benefits that nobody really knows about. So perhaps it's a better drive that they need to focus on.
100%. So ultimately, what is your ranking from 1 to 10 on this?
Sector-wise, if I look at the comparatives you mentioned, I'd give this a staggering 9.
I'm with you on that, actually.
Really?
I agree with you. I think the value for money that this presents, it's well built. We cannot argue that it's well built.
Build quality, finish, feel, all of it.
In fact, the only reason why it doesn't get a 10 is the motor.
Yes.
Having said that, though, it's still a better motor than its competitors.
100%. 100%.
So I think if Haval put in a diesel here,
yes.
they put a diesel into this,
it'll fly.
They'll sell thousands of units. So 9 out of 10, could have got a 10 out of 10, but
could have. Just
could
a
have,
little bit.
Should have.
Yeah, it was a bit short.
Well, that's it from Let's Talk Automotive, and until our next segment, we'll see you then.
Goodbye.
So straight into guest of the week, and we are sitting amongst legends.
Really?
Yes.
You're talking about Peter.
Arnold Getz, thank you very much for joining us
Thanks for
on
asking
Let's
me.
Talk Automotive. What an honor to have you on the show. Thank you very much. The last time we saw each other was at 2019 Samola Hill Climb.
Which makes my heart bleed because we had
believe.
such a lot of fun during the weekend. It's one of the all-time great weekends for me. So
Absolutely.
this year we couldn't have it, but we're holding thumbs next year.
Next year. Arnie, tell us a little bit about what you've been up to. How have you been, and how's COVID treated you this year, and all that lacquer stuff, man?
Hasn't it been a test? Eh? It's
It
been a
is
test. So
definitely.
I don't want to do negative stuff. I like to think positively. So there's two things that have come out for me. I think the first thing is that we all learned that family is far more important than anything else.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
And secondly, and this is, forgive me if it sounds like I'm going off on a Christian tangent here, but I think the one thing that I've discovered in any case is that nothing is certain.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing is certain. You can have everything in your bank account. You can have it all planned out. My next year is going to be this, and next year, and in 5 years time.
Yeah.
Nothing that you have planned is certain.
I
And
can-
therefore, you've got to bank on one thing and one thing alone, and that's what you believe in.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think it's also been, respectfully, it's been a great equalizer for a lot of people. It's
Yeah.
humbled a lot of people, and it's reset a lot of things for a lot of people. Yeah.
Very much so.
All right, so for all our viewers joining us on raceday.tv, FS Media, and right here on our Let's Talk Automotive page, I hope that they, after that extensive CV that we
So
read
it was
out,
quite
there,
impressive,
it
actually.
was.
I listened to it. I think I'd like to meet the guy.
I hope that you guys got the answer right. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. That's why we do the show. It's interactive. So if you have any questions for Arnold, please just... Is it Arnie or Arnold?
I don't mind. I
What
don't
what
care.
sounds more butch? Come on.
Okay, you want me to tell you the story?
Yeah,
quickly?
yeah, please.
I worked with Schwarzenegger when he came back to South Africa, and funny enough, he actually made his name here first because Reg Park coached him here
Yes,
Okay.
before he
correct,
won Mr. Universe.
Yeah.
In any case, so he came back here in the late 90s, 1990s, and we did this tour. We called it the Arnie and Arnie Tour, and we went around the country, and it was the Special Olympics. And at Sun City, with 1,500 people in the Super Bowl, I went, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Arnie Schwarzenegger." And he came up and he took the mic and he said, "Please call me Arnold. It is much more ballsy." And he wasn't joking. He wasn't joking.
And I wouldn't argue
Yes,
with him.
sir.
I would have definitely called him Arnold after that.
Indeed.
All right, well, let's get going, Pete.
So Arnold, I mean, you as I introduced you, are a prolific sportsman. If you had to go back in life and start life over again and become a professional sportsman, what would be your sport of
I
choice?
would have loved to have been a pro golfer.
Pro golfer.
I would have loved, but I was never good enough, let's be honest. But I mean, I saw an interview with Fulton Allen last week that Dale Hayes had with him, and how's this for a stat? So Fulty first off says that during a round, if you have 72 blows, you spend a second and a half hitting the golf ball out of 4 hours, for starters. And then he says only 2,000 guys in the world are good enough to play on the PGA Tour, and only 125 of them maintain it.
Yes.
To play professional golf must be one of the hardest sports in the world, although I guess it's like racing. It's like
Yeah.
motor racing.
Yeah.
You don't get to motor race. You don't get to Formula One. There's only 20 of them in the world. That's
Yeah.
good enough. I mean, do me a favor.
There's a stat that I always used to quote, I think, and I hopefully this is still relevant, that only 1% of the world's golfing population has ever played to par or better.
Absolutely.
1%
Wow. Yeah.
of everybody that plays golf.
But I mean, that just also shows what an incredible job our South African golfers
Yeah.
do on the world stage.
Unbelievable. Unfortunately, the last year or so, we haven't been quite as dominant as what I thought we would be. But there's a lot of young kids coming through. I mean, the list is endless, led by
Yeah.
Brandon Stone, and,
Yeah.
and it goes on and on. It's just that one or two bits of breakthrough that we're looking for them.
So it's an automotive show, so I don't want to bore all these people watching us
With golf.
with
Yeah.
golf and whatever the
It's a
case is.
cuck game. It's never going to take off.
Thank you so much.
So what I'd like to do is go back to 1982, just a year after I was born, by
That's
the way.
not funny, Fanie.
It's-
Oh, by the
that's-
way, this is the perfect thing. We can rename the show the Fanie and Arnie Show. I like it. Thought I'd throw that in for you.
So 1982, you started your career. 1984, you joined the
SABC.
SREK
Yeah.
Yep.
back in the day.
Heeltemal reg.
That was still Top Sport in those days. We grew up with you in our living
It
rooms.
was actually before Top Sport, believe it or
Really?
not. So I joined Radio News on the 2nd of January 1984, and I wrote the news bulletins for Springbok Radio, Radio Hoërveld, and Radio 5. Radio 5.
Radio 5. My wife still calls it Radio 5. I keep telling her it's 5FM.
5 yeah, in fact, it's now just 5.
Yeah.
So
But, I'm behind the
it
times.
makes it easy, because you can't miss, unless you're Dave Peterson, then it's 4.
Yeah.
In any case, the fact of the matter is, I got there, and then within 3 months, they were looking for someone who could do some audio stuff in Afrikaans and English. And then 6 months later, the guys from up the road, because radio was down, and the big tall building, that was TV.
Yes.
So they heard of this bilingual boy, and they said, come do an audition. And I don't know what it was, because I promise you, no, I couldn't spell my name, never mind broadcast. And there I was doing SABC News. And then in 1986, they launched Top Sport.
Okay, and motorsport was part of that, and the
Absolutely.
early F1 stuff. I remember as a young boy, Kalami and all that stuff, and watching you on TV.
And Roger McCleary was one of my heroes, to
Yeah.
be honest with you.
And he's
Honestly,
still going strong.
It's unbelievable. You talk about
Yes.
Samola, go down there, and I interview Roger, and I'm thinking, I'm talking to a legend here. I better watch what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I
This
think
guy,
we've actually got some photos, so we'll get to that just now.
unreal, really.
Okay, so you actually, we didn't know this. I from talking to you back in the day, you actually grew up in a automotive household.
Yeah. My old man sold cars for 57 years, non-stop. In fact,
Sure.
11 days before he passed away, he sold his last car.
Really?
It's ridiculous. I said to him, Dad, why don't you just retire? He said, then I've got to listen to your mother scrap at home. No, I sell cars. And he was brilliant at it. So he got to Springs in 1962, the year that I was born.
Yeah.
I was a clip, so they left Bloemfontein and they went there to get out of as far away as they could get.
Yeah.
And he sold cars. He sold cars in Bloemfontein. That's when he started. And 50 odd years later, he was still selling cars to some of the people that he sold cars to at the beginning.
Wow.
It's remarkable. He's the motor traders out there. I hope you take this to heart. His motto was, "I won't sell a car to anyone unless I buy it."
Sure.
That was it. Period. He lived by that motto.
We're missing that kind of ethos, I think, in the industry at the moment.
Yeah, and let's be honest, it also needs a little bit of integrity. And I'm not saying the business doesn't have, but it needs people to understand that they represent all of us. The guys like my old man who did it for years and years, and the youngsters who are coming through.
Yes.
We need to be honorable in what we do. I teach to car dealers. I do corporate coaching. And it is amazing to me when you start talking about this, their eyes open and go, never thought about that before.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how I'd like to do it. That's how we should be doing it.
So I want to pull back a little bit, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
to the motorsport side of things. I'm a huge fan of the Samola Hill climb.
Yeah.
I'm very jealous of what Fanie does.
No,
down
we
there.
score big time.
He
It's
scored.
lovely.
So maybe if you can just tell us a little bit more about the Samola Hill climb and your involvement.
So I got lucky. Matt Smith 1 year couldn't make it, 2 years, 3 years ago. And they said, well, Matt said he suggested me to the bunch of guys who do the hill climb. And I got lucky enough and I got roped in. And man, I absolutely adore it. You work with lovely people. And then there's, of course,
Thanks,
the classic cars. It's just incredible. And there's the classic car side of things.
Yeah.
There's the Formula One side of things mixed in. And you get all those big bangers. It's got everything.
Yeah.
And it's damn exciting.
Yeah.
Hell, it's exciting. So, and then, of course, from a viewer's point of view, the excitement is also up to us who's in the box and you
Yes.
guys interview. It's our job to wind this thing up and set it free. Like Stephen King says, give it the car keys and let it ride. It's lovely.
And I tell you what, it's grown. It's come in leaps and bounds. I mean,
Yeah.
the money that's being spent at the moment is eye-watering, actually, on some
Yes.
of the vehicles.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think if somebody, well, I think actually somebody did, and I think we mentioned it, the total amount of money that's there that weekend. If you take all the cars and add up,
It's the GDP of Swaziland and Botswana put together. Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
all right. So I think what I'd like to do before we get to the game, because
I've heard of this. I'm rather worried.
this is my favorite one. But anyway, you told me a very lovely story about your father and your first experience with the Jaguars and all that sort of stuff.
So the old man sold Fiats. In fact, he sold Fiats at Lucy's Motors in Brakpan and Springs in the old days, because I'm an East Rand boy. And because he sold Fiats, everyone expected you to drive a Fiat.
Yeah.
The old man loved Jaguars. He
Okay.
had 3 of them. The XJ6 was his all-time favorite. He had 3 of them at one stage, and he just said, you can give me any Fiat you like. I'm not driving a Fiat.
Yeah.
I'm driving a Jaguar. That was the story. But he had very different ideas about how things would do. I mean, my favorite story about him of all time was the old boy we'd sit and I'd go and have coffee with him, and we'd sit there and watch, and the guy would come in and go, Don't worry about that. It's just a tire kicker.
Yeah.
Gotta love it. Got to love it.
All right, so Peter, are you ready?
Never.
So let me tell you about this.
Yep.
Peter, we've had 25 episodes now. Peter's won once and drawn twice.
Okay.
So the odds are fairly stacked in
And
your
you've
favor.
won the rest.
No.
he
I
doesn't
don't
play.
compete.
Oh,
I just set it up
He
for.
he
I set you
just
up
throws
for
me under the
failure.
bus.
Oh,
Yes.
well,
Every
that's
weekend.
nice. That's
Okay,
nice.
so how this works on is we're going to show you guys an on-screen picture, a partial of a vehicle.
Okay.
If you know and recognize the car, you need to shout your name.
Okay.
Very strict
Okay.
on this. Okay.
Right.
Shout your name, then I'll come to you and give you a chance to give me an answer. There's 6 cars.
Right.
And viewers at home, you are also allowed to join us in. So if you recognize the car, please pop your answer right into the comments.
Are you going to give us any?
Don't shout your name, except if you want to.
Are you going to give us any clues, please?
Yes. The clues are that this is iconic South African cars.
What sort of a clue is that?
Yeah. That's
Thanks. Okay,
Well,
that leaves the door open.
okay, so let me be honest with you guys. It's for you guys that's a little bit older than me. I recognize some
Wow.
of them, but
Says the
this,
kid.
this
Okay, here we go.
all right, here we
Right,
go.
ready.
Here's the first one, guys. There's the first one.
Oh, Mazda, Ani.
Oh, Ani. First you shout your name, yes,
Yeah. Yes.
and then you gave me the wrong answer.
Is it
So-
the wrong answer?
Yes.
Peter.
Peter, what do you think that
I'm going
is?
to say that's a Toyota Corolla.
You're
think
so
you're
close. So close.
A Toyota. What was those Toyotas with the weird patch on the back?
You almost said bad.
Ani?
Ani, yes.
Is it a Toyota Conquest?
Absolutely correct.
There you go.
Absolutely
How's
correct.
that?
So-
Okay, so you know what was the giveaway? Was the hubcap.
Yes,
man.
do you remember that?
Of course.
Okay.
So everybody, the rest of the cars, you've known somebody that had, or you had one of these cars.
Okay, for sure.
That's the story. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give Ani that point because
Sorry,
I'd like to.
I
No, he's very.
I'm not
harsh
even
on
going
that.
to give you
off
half
you
a point. All right, here comes the second one.
Peter.
Okay, Ani was first.
Okay, is that the Nissan Exa?
No.
Peter.
Peter, what do you think that
I'm going to
is?
say that's one of the original Nissan Skylines.
Let's see. Absolutely correct.
Well done, Pete. Congratulations.
Peter-
I wasn't far away, eh?
Peter won and Ani
Did the
won.
Exa not also look a bit like that in the front?
Yeah,
huh?
It did.
Yeah.
They,
it did.
they all had a little bit of a similar, but
Yeah.
well done, Pete. So 1 to Peter, and here comes the next one.
Peter.
Your Pete. I know that Ani knows this one.
You know, this is a double-edged one because it could be two types of vehicle. It could be a Datsun and it could be a Nissan Champ.
This one is the Nissan Champ. Well done.
Hey, congratulations. Wow.
Okay, Ani, you need to step up your game now.
Yeah. I tell you what, Peter had me on draw there because I had it.
Here comes the
Had me
next
on the
one.
draw.
Peter.
Oh my goodness.
That is
Please.
a Mazda 323. Or it is the Ford. No, I'm going to say we'll stick with Mazda. Mazda
Well,
323.
well done,
Yeah.
Peter.
Yeah.
There
Well
you
done,
go.
Peter.
How's that?
Sorry, Arnie.
No,
it's just
that's-
clearly, I
that's
know these are
excellent.
these are
Okay,
relevant to
so
my,
what we're going to
to
do
my
now,
era.
what we're going to do now, okay, just so that you guys know at home, there's only a chance for Peter to draw this, okay?
So you're going to
So
turn my microphone
we're going
off
to
now.
turn off Peter's mic. Here comes the next one.
Peter.
Come on, no, please, no.
That is an Opel Kadett.
Yeah, it is too. Opel Kadett. You're right. Clearly.
Peter takes
But
this.
it doesn't count because it's an overseas one.
All right, let's give Anya a chance to redeem himself with the last one.
Ani. Right, that's a Ford Cortina.
Absolutely
You
correct.
couldn't, you couldn't miss that.
I'll tell you something. Honestly, when I grew up, that was my favorite car. I dreamed of owning a Ford Cortina.
Yes.
You won't believe, so I was saying earlier that I drove behind a Ford Capri, which was
Really?
the sports model of
Yeah,
it, if
yeah,
you
yeah.
like,
Yes.
just yesterday. Beautiful lime yellow one. It was breathtaking.
Yeah.
Basil van Rooyen used to race those at
Yes,
Kyle Army.
yes.
I loved them.
If
Loved
I'm not
them.
mistaken, I think my dad had that baby blue one.
Oh, there you go. It was
You
like a
remember-
powder blue.
yeah, powder
but
blue.
then Basil van Rooyen raced that orange one, almost that orange and
Yes.
tungsten colours. Remember?
Yes,
oh,
yes,
it was
yes.
gorgeous.
Yeah,
Gorgeous.
no, I love them.
Okay,
Love them.
so
Well done.
Thank you.
It's going to be rainy tonight and for the rest of the weekend, unfortunately. Well done, Peter, for your second win.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed.
good.
It was good. All right, guys. Thank you very much, Arnold.
Thank you for asking me.
It was a lovely surprise to have you.
An absolute treat, because I've got to say that you are one of the people that I did follow often on TV
Thank
and
you, I
watch and
appreciate
grow up with you. So it was.
I've
it was
got a very
fantastic,
quick a very quick story. All right, so Samola Hill Climb, 2019. We're having a braai, okay? But I'm tired, so I go to bed. And Mr. Geertz here is standing outside my window on the deck.
Overlooking the ocean.
Overlooking the ocean. And they're having a discussion. And it felt like somebody had left the TV on. with the voice coming through the window.
You know what's amazing to me, before we say goodbye? I'm always amazed when I meet people and they go, "You sound just like what you sound like on television." Well, what do you think I sound like? You think I've got a different voice when I'm on television? This is me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Along with him and go, no, don't.
No, it's not me.
All right, Pete, so my second favorite part of the show is how things work. And tonight we're looking at passive safety systems in cars. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into this week's segment of How Things Work, proudly brought to you by Suzuki Auto South Africa.
Welcome to part 2 of our segment on how things work on passive safety systems. And in this week's episode, we're going to take you through airbags, seatbelts, and some of the soft touch elements that we see inside of our vehicles. So let's kick off straight away with airbags and seatbelts. So seatbelts are known as our primary restraint system, and airbags are known as our supplementary or secondary restraint system. And you might have even seen on some of the airbags the letters SRS, and that's what that stands for. So let's start off with our seatbelts. Seatbelts have come a long way in terms of technology and design. And in fact, in the early days, seatbelts were pretty dangerous, and that's probably the reason why a lot of people today still feel like they don't want to wear a seatbelt. But all things have changed on that, and the designs are fantastic. So there's a couple of elements for us to consider when it comes to seatbelts. The first is that seatbelts are a little bit wider than they were in the past, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit later. The second is seatbelts are actually very stretchy. The third thing is seatbelts have pre-tensioners, which pull us back into our chairs with pyrotechnics. And the fourth thing is that seatbelts also have load force limiters. So when we breach a certain force on the seatbelt itself, it's going to allow us to continue moving forward without creating severe injuries for us. Now let's move on to our supplementary restraint system, which is our airbags. Now, the way that airbags work is fascinating, and I want to reference one of my favorite scientists, Pascal. And he has a law that tells us that for the same force, the smaller the surface area that's acting on a surface, the greater the pressure. So I want you to try and do this experiment yourself and take your index finger and push it onto your chest muscle hard. It's quite sore, isn't it? But if you take a flat hand with a bigger surface area now and you push over here, you can hardly feel anything. And that's exactly what an airbag is doing for us. When the airbag is inflated and we move forward, the airbag is taking the entire surface area of our upper body and absorbing all that force, and therefore we have less pressure. Now imagine the difference between that and the small surface area of your steering wheel and the forces that you would feel then. Now the technology on airbags has increased in leaps and bounds, both from an electronics point of view, from a control unit point of view, and just the way the airbag works in general. Now there's a few rules under which an airbag will only deploy. So first of all, if we have a look at a front impact of a vehicle, the airbag will only deploy if that impact is within 30 degrees of the center line of the vehicle. Anything beyond 30 degrees, the airbag control unit will consider that as a side impact, and in fact your side impact airbags will now deploy, not your front airbags. The second thing is that if a vehicle rolls over, it is highly unlikely that any of the airbags will deploy, except if you've got rollover mitigation technology on your vehicles, and therefore the sensors that exist there will be able to deploy some of the airbags in the event of a rollover. And obviously, if you get rear-ended in a vehicle, your front and side airbags are not going to deploy. So please, if you've had an accident in a vehicle and your airbags haven't deployed, really the acid test is, were you severely injured in that accident? And if the answer is no, then the airbags have actually done their job. Because you must remember the force and the velocity with which an airbag deploys. They're deploying at between 300 and 400 kilometers an hour. It's a bomb, essentially, that is going off. And so the acoustic damage that you'll have as well is quite severe. So you almost don't want an airbag to go off. It must be a last resort. Now, a modern control unit on an airbag can actually determine a few interesting things. It can determine the speed of the vehicle that's hitting you, as well as the weight of that vehicle hitting you, and then it's going to do some very interesting things. Because these days we have multi-stage airbags, which factor in those conditions, as well as the weight and the position of the person sitting on the seat. So the seat in the vehicle itself has load sensors which can determine where on the seat they're sitting, how heavy the person is sitting on that seat, as well as I've said, the speed and the weight of the vehicle that is impacting into you. And based on that, it is going to partially or fully deploy the airbag. So sensational stuff. And in fact, the latest generation airbags are now also working on staging how they deflate. So currently airbags have two great big holes in them. So immediately that they inflate, they deflate. But now they have valves on them that actually regulate at which rate they deflate. So sensational stuff on the airbags. All right, so we've gone through the theory of airbags and seatbelts. Now let's go and have a look at them in action in the vehicle itself. So we have two main primary restraint systems. We have our seatbelt and our airbags. And our seatbelt is our primary restraint system. And our airbags are our supplementary restraint system. And you might have seen on some of the airbags that it says SRS, and that's exactly what it stands for, supplementary restraint system. So having a look at the seatbelts first, modern seatbelts are actually remarkably stretchy. I can't apply enough force now, but in an accident, my body weight would actually cause this belt to stretch slightly. And that's again going to assist me to slow down slower and not have a sudden stop, which would cause injury. The second thing that these seatbelts do is they have what's called a pre-tensioner. So it's a pyrotechnic device that actually explodes. It releases a gas, and as it releases the gas, it tensions up the seatbelt and puts me in the correct position to take full advantage of both the seatbelt and the airbag. And it also reduces any slack in the seatbelt that would cause dramatic injury from impulse forces if I had to hit the seatbelt if it was slack. So nice pre-tensioning of the seatbelt puts me in the correct position. Now, as I experience the forces on the seatbelt, as we've mentioned, the seatbelt material stretches slightly, but the second thing it does is we have what's called a load force limiter. So if I exceed a certain force on the seatbelt, it is actually very, very tightly spring-loaded. So it's going to allow me to move slightly forward again with the seatbelt, further reducing the energy. When it comes to the airbag, the way the airbag works is the airbag deploys very rapidly. Now, ultimately, this airbag's deploying at 300 to 400 kilometers per hour. If I'm not wearing a seatbelt, I'm going to meet the airbag while it's deploying, and that's going to actually cause more injuries than good. So it's very, very important that we have our seatbelt on to take advantage of the airbag, because ultimately we want to impact the airbag as it's actually deflating. One of the things that I wanted to talk to is that there seems to be this old housewife's tale that if your seatbelt is not properly anchored, that your airbags actually switch off, and that's not the case. Your airbags will still deploy, but it's obviously not first prize to be hitting the airbag while it's deploying, as we said earlier. Another thing that we don't necessarily realize about a modern vehicle is the fact that there's a lot of soft touch elements inside the cockpit of the vehicle which are designed to prevent supplementary injuries in the event of an impact. So one of the things that's going to happen if I have a full frontal impact is my arms are going to let go of the steering wheel and they're going to start flaying around, and they're going to actually impact a lot of these surfaces quite hard. And you'll notice that all these surfaces, whether it's these switches over here or the indicator stalks or even the sides of the vehicle, are all nice and soft touch, and that's designed, as I said, to prevent supplementary injuries, which is very, very cool. All right, so we've really just had a look at some of the basic passive safety features on a vehicle. So the chassis, the airbags, seatbelts, and some of the soft touch elements. But there's a lot more exciting design work that's gone into some of the passive safety features, and we're certainly going to have a look at those in future episodes of How Things Work. So until next time, see you then.
Pete, that was very, very informative.
And just the tip of the iceberg, by the way, there's so much more to come.
You know, every week I learn something, and just to think, you know, we take stuff for granted completely, like completely.
Oh, for
stuff
sure.
that we don't even think about. I've got a question for you though.
Yes.
I've heard of people when they've been in an accident, the airbag actually burns them, like they've got burn marks on their arms or on their face or whatever. Is it because of the explosive device, or how does what causes the burn?
Yeah, actually, it's a lot of people think it's because of the pyrotechnic nature of the airbag that they're getting burnt by the explosive nature of the airbag. But the way that an airbag inflates is because there's a combination or reaction with potassium azide and sodium azide and potassium nitrate, and those two combine to make nitrogen, which is actually an inert gas which doesn't burn.
Sure.
But where the burns are coming from are actually friction burns.
Really?
So you're holding onto a steering wheel.
Like a carpet burn type of thing.
Exactly like a carpet burn. So you're holding onto the steering wheel, and the airbag's actually got quite a rough texture to it.
Yes.
And as it's inflating, it's rubbing on your arms, and you
My
can,
goodness.
if you rub hard enough on your arms,
yeah.
it's going to cause a burn.
That's very interesting. Another interesting story that I'd like to share with you, the crash tests that you saw in that video, courtesy of Suzuki Global, they've got this facility at their offices in Japan where they test and obviously crash these vehicles. And Brendan Carpenter, a friend from Suzuki South Africa, or Suzuki Auto South Africa, told me yesterday that he was actually, I think in 2018, in that facility, and he was there when they did a crash test.
I hope he wasn't in one of the cars.
And here's the sad thing. Listen to this. They crash between 1 and 2 cars there at that facility every day.
Yeah. That hurts, eh?
That hurts.
That hurts. But I suppose it's necessary.
Needs to be done.
It's a necessary evil, yeah.
Needs to be done. All right, Pete, that brings us to the end of our show.
Excellent. Fanie, thank you very much. It's been awesome, and what a great guest in Arnold Geertz.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back here next week. Same time, same place. Have a great week.
Cheers, guys.